My lords, we are really lucky right now that we live in a democracy, that people are able to freely express their opinions, whether we agree with them or not.
No other city before London had done anything like this, and it just means that the whole future of the Olympics and Paralympics is set at a new level.
Tanni, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. First of all, I want to start with your childhood. Tell me what those early years were like.
So I was born with spina bifida, and I could walk a little bit when I was young, not very well. My legs never really developed or grew properly. So I fell over a lot, I remember that. And as I grew, my spine collapsed, and it was my own vertebra that severed my spinal cord. And it's interesting how people treated me differently and then told my parents all the things that I would never do because I was paralysed. But my parents just didn't treat me any differently and brought me up to believe I could do not quite whatever I wanted, but I should still have aspirations to work and get an education and do these things. So very, very lucky that my parents saw beyond all the negativity.
Your parents sound like they were a really big influence on you, but they were also keen that you should have the opportunity to have a mainstream education. What was school like?
So eventually, I mean, it was probably 9 or 10 months. So I didn't miss a school year, which was really lucky. But my parents got me into mainstream ed, and nowhere near where we lived. So there was a social side that I missed out on, but I'd do it again because the school I could have ended up in, I would never have done A-levels, I would never have gone to university, and I would never have had my career in sport. So, you know, the fact that my parents saw that and had the ability to have the fight and weren't afraid to have the fight was instrumental in the whole of the rest of my life.
Tell me how you first got involved in sport.
I mean, as a child, I grew up watching a lot of sport because my parents loved it. If I had the choice between doing it or watching it, I would do it. And very competitive. That was always there, and it was about finding the right sort of outlet, I think, in terms of being able to express myself. And through sport, through wheelchair racing, I was able to kind of express sort of me as an individual.
What was it like when you won your first medal at the Olympics?
It was amazing. I mean, it was Seoul, 88. I won a bronze medal. Best race I'd done to that point, you know, timed it. I mean, 400 metres is a brutal event. You can time it really well and you can time it really badly. And it was a big step up in performance as well, a big personal best for me. And it was one of those things that really motivated me. And I've had to pick my top 10 races. That 400 metres in Seoul would be absolutely near the top of the list.
What were your ambitions at the time, and particularly when you finished your degree? What did you want to do?
When I finished my degree, I was very clear that I was never going to work in politics. I did say to my head of department that politics was for losers. So that was interesting many years later when that's where I ended up. I graduated in 91, and at that point it was about training for Barcelona, Paralympics, having a year as a full-time athlete, and then seeing what happened.
Talk to me about your move into TV presenting. How did that happen, and did you feel like it came naturally when it did?
When I was competing, I just had the opportunity to do other things, and again, really good advice when I was young was just try stuff. You know, don't sit on the outside and say I don't want to do it. So yeah, I got to do lots of TV and radio. And it was good to have other things to do to kind of balance training and competition. So had a lot of fun. I worked for a long time on consumer affairs programme and then did local radio, and it was kind of good fun.
Looking back to 2012, during the Olympics, you were heavily involved here in London. What was that experience like?
2012 was amazing. You know, Olympics and Paralympics, and I got involved right at the beginning of the bid. and then was in Singapore for, you know, the announcement, and then worked on games delivery. An incredible 10 years of my life. An amazing moment with Jess Ennis winning on Super Saturday. It was an incredible games, but if you look at the physical legacy of the games now, it's amazing. You know, all the different venues we have here, all the different businesses. I mean, you've got the BBC Orchestra here, the V&A, UCL, the new housing, Bobby Moore School. I mean, the list is just endless in terms of the things. You know, a lot of those things were planned around the time of the bid, but then actually what people have done is they've seen what the park is and want to be here as well. So it sets a really important blueprint, I think, for future games.
You're also heavily involved in charities. What sort of interests do you have? What are the things that are driving you?
My work with charities is about trying to give opportunities, mostly to people who don't have them. So whether that's young people or women or disabled people or the intersectionality of all that. It's, you know, I was very lucky that I had the opportunity to do loads of things as a child and as a teenager and as an adult. So, you know, you can learn a lot from being a trustee in terms about bringing about change. So it's all those things that contributed to me being in the Lords.
How did you become a member of the Lords?
I'm a crossbench peer, and I had the opportunity, somebody from one of the government departments suggested that I should put my name forward. So there's a lot of luck in the appointment, because you've got to fit the gap that's there. It's a fascinating process to go through. It's not like any other job interview I've ever been for.
Tell us about the committees that you've been part of.
The committee work is really interesting because you have the chance to sort of deep dive into issues, and you get to call people to give evidence, and you get to sense check your views. They're a lot of work, but to sit on them is really important, because the thing that gets you to the Lords, you are expected to remain an expert in. And that means you have to kind of do outside work, and you have to kind of be involved in, you know, day-to-day stuff. You know, when I talk about sport, they want me to talk about what happened yesterday and last week, not 10 years ago. So sitting on the committees is a really important part of just being connected into that wider world of sport.
When you look back, what are you most proud of?
Well, I know I've had my best time in sport. That's well and truly done. I kind of hope I haven't had my best moment in politics yet. I think it's learning from the things you do well, learning from the things that you maybe didn't do so well at the time, and trying to affect change. I mean, if I had to pick one thing in my career in politics so far, it would be part of a team of people who got positions of trust legislation across the line for sport. So that is legislation that now has made it illegal for a coach to be in a sexual relationship with a 16 and 17-year-old. That was not illegal. You know, that's 7 years of my life, helping get that across the line. So some of these things don't move quickly. You know, there's 30 things I'd like to do before I finish in this place. And, you know, I'm trying to get through them.